It's time now for the K.C. Ingram Show on WSTU. The opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not necessarily those of WSTU. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. It's time to call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788, 220-WSTU. And now, here's K.C. Ingram.
Well, good morning and welcome to the K.C. Ingram Show. We have another repeat guest and a great addition here in the studio. With me today is our Indian River keeper, Captain Mike Connor. So he always comes in and gives us updates on the water issues, which are ongoing and forever, and we hope to change that someday. So welcome back to the studio there, Captain Mike.
Thank you, K.C. I appreciate the opportunity, as always.
Oh, I love all the information, and I know you've been busy, but before we get into the show, I have to give a shout out to my sponsor, Indiantown Marina. You know, I talk about them every week, but Scott Watson out there with Indiantown Marina. It's one of South Florida's best boat storage facilities around, and we are in the midst of hurricane season right now, and we have been so fortunate so far, but that can change in an instant. So, folks, I can't stress enough, at least get a reservation so you have a place to go, because I can tell you from past experience that people that wait when a hurricane is named, it's too late for you. These places book up very quickly. So get your reservation today. Super well-protected hurricane holder out there in Indiantown, so you're going to be really safe from the hurricanes. And you can call them up at 772-631-3272. That's 631-3272. And again, that's Indiantown Marina. Get your hurricane storage out there. And they do more. They also are a do-it-yourself and full-service boat yard, so anything that you need, they can help you out. So appreciate Indiantown Marina. And also, I want to let everybody know for next week's show, it's going to be a lot of fun. We're bringing in Tony Stevens. He's in the UK, so he can't come into the studio. And because of that, he's going to join us on Facebook Live on Tuesday. So it's going to be a different time for the Facebook Live. And we're going to talk about rock fashions of the 70s and 80s. So doesn't that sound like fun, Mike?
I was there.
So he has some wonderful stories to tell, including one with a red suit that's going to be very interesting. But for those of you who don't know, Tony Stevens is a founding member of Foghat, Slow Ride. Everybody's heard of Slow Ride. He is, that's right, take it easy. And he was also in Savoy Brown and Midnight Flyer, just so many different rock groups over the years. So anxious to have that show. But now let's get on to the important work and the reason why Captain Connor is here with us today. What have you been doing since the last time you visited the show? It's been
it's
several.
Been 8 months.
Yes,
or so.
It's been quite a few months.
A lot of things have happened lately. Right now, we are, as far as local conditions right now, we've been fortunate that we haven't had hurricane rains. We looked like we were going to get a lot of rain from Eta and other storms.
Yes.
And, even rainfall from a hurricane, direct hit, bad enough, but even rainfall from a hurricane really clobbers our waterways because of stormwater runoff and, God forbid, Lake Okeechobee discharges. So right now, we've been lucky. We've dodged a lot of bullets already this year, and we were lucky last couple of years compared to years prior. So
very fortunate.
Looking good in that respect. We did have enough rain, though, this last year prior to hurricane season, surprisingly, to put a lot of water in our estuary. And, if you look at the waterways today, if you go on the sandbars last weekend, you might have thought, boy, the water's brown. The river's really looking horrible. And a lot of times I'll get calls from followers saying they're discharging the lake, obviously, right? And I'll say, no, they're not. They're not discharging the lake. This is local runoff right now. Local runoff can really tally up pretty quickly. Like this morning, I look at it 3 times a day. 2 days ago, we were getting 1.2 billion gallons of water into the North Fork alone.
Wow.
Just from the C23, 24, 25 canal.
Wow.
Then you got a lump on top of that runoff and direct rainfall.
Right.
And now, I think about a month ago, they started lowering the C44 canal in just preparation to make capacity out there because storms were on the horizon. And the lake right now is at like 14.75 elevation. That's elevation above sea level.
Okay.
That doesn't mean depth of the lake.
Okay.
That's the elevation mark.
Okay.
And that tells engineers how far up the dike, how far up the embankment that water is. And today it's at 14.75.
At what point are they going to discharge at what level?
Well, and then the old program for the lake was called LORS. Lake Okeechobee Regulation Schedule, really was a horrible situation for estuaries and for the people on the coast, because basically LORS looked at the lake as a reservoir only. So the stakeholders that had more interest in water supply irrigation growers, whoever, they were basically feeling great about it. Status quo was fine because they did get their guaranteed water. But what it did do, Casey, what problem with lures was it didn't take in consideration ecological damage and human health, which only the last 10 or 12, 14 years has reared its ugly head, made us realize this water with the guacamole, as people call it, the cyanobacteria blooms, it's not just a bad thing for marine life and for optics. It is a health hazard. So now, the Army Corps, and I suppose with the pressure from the public and from pressure from legislators who are friendly to us and know they have to do something, they have reformulated lures. They're in the process now of making a program called LOSM. There's a lot of acronyms in this water world.
There are.
There's a glossary of acronyms. If you look at the South Florida Water Management District site or the Corps, there's 1,000 acronyms for all these different scientific, whatever. It's acronym city.
Plans and whatever they have.
LOSM is the Lake Okeechobee Systems Operating Manual.
Okay.
And that's the new manual. That's going to be the book.
Replacing lures.
It's replacing lures. And it is going to basically be the way the Army Corps manages the lake for the next decade, next 10 years.
Okay.
So we've got to get this thing right. And we got to pitch in and make sure we get consideration this time.
So they're not going to revisit this once it's passed or instituted for a decade.
They probably won't. Once they've spent 3 years formulating this thing. We're coming down to the wire. We're like in 2 minutes to go in the ball game. Okay.
We're speaking with Captain Mike Connor. He's the Indian River Keeper here in the area. And, if you have any questions for him, now's the time to call 772-220-WSTU. That's 772-220-9788. Or I'm watching on Facebook Live comments and we can football a question over Captain Connor as well. This is so important. And I know that you were talking before you came in today about meetings that are happening today and make sure there's public involvement. So.
Yeah. The Army Corps, if you just Google, you don't have to know the site, just Google Army Corps LOSM, LOSOM. You'll come to their page. You'll see links. Hot links for the workshops. There's a workshop 2:00 I'll be on today. Anybody can chime in there and you can do the raise hand. Some of them are workshops only, some have public comment.
Okay.
Do the raise hand. If anybody's done Zoom before, you're not on camera with them. You're strictly, as most of the agency Zooms are, your voice comes over. You're not to worry about how you look.
But you have to when you come into this studio.
You do here. Yeah.
It's more than radio.
Keeps us all honest, right? But so LOSM at this point, it's been 3 years in formulation. And to make it simple, you have stakeholders. You have stakeholders here. We are stakeholders. Residents of Martin County, St. Lucie County, and Palm Beach County, they're stakeholders. They're stakeholders in the Caloosahatchee River, Lee County, Fort Myers, stakeholders below the lake, sugarcane growers and vegetable growers. They're stakeholders all around the lake, correct?
Right.
There's bass fishermen, the bass fishing industry, they're stakeholders. So the Corps is trying to get a plan. They keep saying balance. We want to get this plan where it's equitable and we have perfect balance across the board for all stakeholders. But, here on St. Lucie, we're not worried about balance because balance tells us you want lake water and when you don't want lake water. We don't want lake water.
Right.
We never have, never will. So for us, balance is zero discharges.
Right.
So that has been our war cry here for a long time. Different agencies, organizations. I've been here 23 years, and it was always zero discharges. Stop the discharges.
Mike, for just a second here, for newer residents to the area, they haven't seen the discharges and don't quite understand what's so bad about Lake Okeechobee waters entering our estuary.
Yeah, well, discharge runoff is runoff, but in most cases, Lake Okeechobee, the actual ecological health of that lake has declined so much over the last 30, 40 years because of nutrients coming in from the north. And Lake Okeechobee, if you look at Google Earth, look at any chart, you'll see it has multiple tributaries. The Kissimmee River, and we'll talk about that river in a minute.
Okay.
Restoration was really great habitat.
Okay.
I was out there for the ribbon cutting, was wonderful. There's 5 tributaries north of the lake, if not 6. All that land, and a lot of it's in cattle, a lot of it's in ag. Orlando is north of the lake too.
Right.
Residential along the Kissimmee. All that water comes into Lake Okeechobee. It has for a long, long time. They really put the lake over the top, or should I say, really knocked it out as far as phosphorus was the Kissimmee River dechannelization. And the Kissimmee was once a winding serpentine river, which flooded during the summer, as Lake Okeechobee used to flood too before the dike. It always expanded and got wetter, and all that wetland is naturally there in the summertime. it was decided from people coming to Florida that wanted to reclaim the land north of the lake, be it for cattle or farming or for development. They wanted to channelize the river to get the water down, to get it down fast, drain that wetland, make it something we can make money with. It's always that way.
Yeah.
How can we make money on this land?
Right.
So they channelized it. They put a straight ditch. It was called the C-38 Canal, and it was 18 to 20 feet deep, and it sure effectively took all that wetland away. All the water would go in the canal, and it came to Lake Okeechobee faster and dirtier.
Mike, do you know the statistic on that? And I know Mark Perry does. How long it used to take the water to flow
Yes.
from Orlando to Lake O, and then once they channelized it, how long it took?
It was many months, and it became like a month, a week, 3 weeks, and the water flows at look, I was out there not
Huge
long ago
difference.
for restoration. It was moving pretty good. Looked like 4-knot current coming down Lake Simi, even with the restoration. What the restoration did, and they started this way back when. Interesting. My wife Michelle's grandfather was Johnny Jones, first Wildlife Federation president. He took it upon himself. He was an airboater and hunter out there. He was so mad about the channelization, and he was famous for saying they knew 4 hours after the plan was done that it was a big mistake. They knew it next day. They knew it. They knew beforehand. And he was one of the most vocal people to go. He actually took Governor Bob Graham by the arm and twisted his arm for a year or two, and finally got Bob Graham to authorize the restoration.
Oh, thank goodness.
I mean, I've got the bills on my wall.
Really?
House. We got the groundbreaking shovel at home and all.
Oh,
I took it to the ribbon
that's
cutting
great.
too.
Michelle,
Yeah.
you must be so proud.
We are. But what happened was the water became in so dirty, so much phosphorus, and it comes from fertilizing manure.
Right.
Also runoff from expanding Orlando and Osceola County, Orange County. All that came to the lake at a bigger rate. So the phosphorus load of the lake became like 140 to 160 parts, and they wanted to do down about 40. And consequently, the lake got dirtier. It was higher. It got muddier, and it started blooming. Cyanobacteria blooms because of the nutrients. And there's cyanobacteria in all waterways, a natural thing in small, minute amounts. But you give it fuel for the fire, it blooms, and then it produces toxins. So the lake marsh has suffered a lot over the last 50 since the Kissimmee was straightened. It really hurt the marsh, hurt the vegetation. And now with the restoration, what they did was they restored about 60% of the river. It's not a full restoration to the top end.
All right.
52 miles are restored, all almost to the lake. And that'll slow the water down a bit. It is not really a restoration that everybody's figuring will save the lake. It will help a little, but it's really a great regional habitat restoration. I mean, right now the birds are back. They really about finished 3 years ago. They're seeing all the birds back. All the fishing is getting better there now. The water's a little cleaner. It's not going to save the lake by itself, that restoration. What's going to save the lake is a new regulation schedule, keeping the elevation down whenever possible. We here locally, Congressman Brian Mast are really been pushing hard the last few years to start with the lower lake in the wet season. Discharge it during the dry season.
Right.
There were numbers thrown around like 11 feet, 12 feet. At 11 feet, there's some folks not happy about it out in the lake because it hurts navigation a little bit. Some of the bass anglers, parts of the marsh are not accessible. So again, see what I'm saying? The balance, finding a sweet spot.
For everybody.
It's not going to be easy. But right now, the way the LOSM is planned, they came out with 4 or 5 alternatives. One of which was we didn't like at all because it again put water supply irrigation at the top of the totem pole.
Okay.
We didn't think it decreased the discharge enough to St. Lucie. There was a plan called CC, and that's the one the Corps came about a month and a half ago and selected as the alternative they were going to run with. And CC will look pretty good around, but alternate CC did not help the Caloosahatchee too much during the wet season. Unlike when we get flows from the lake, KC, it's always harm. There's no benefit. The Caloosahatchee in the dry season needs beneficial flow from the lake.
Okay.
It's kind of like a catch-22.
Right.
The water's not very clean, but they need it in the upper watershed because it gets so salty up there, the grasses die. Okay. So they want to keep the habitat healthy in the Caloosahatchee. So they want like 1,000 CFS. That's cubic feet per second. And I won't do the equation here, but I always talk in gallons. It's a small flow during the dry season that helps the salinity balance in the Caloosahatchee. In our case, the regulatory flows have always been damaging because it lowers the salinity on our estuary so much.
Fresh water coming
that
into our
kills our
brackish
oysters,
water.
stresses the oysters. It drives fish out of the estuary. It hurts it. kills seagrass. Anybody go to the sandbar, Sailfish Flats, all those flats, look how barren they are.
They are.
As recently as 10 years ago, those were lush grass flats. 15 years ago, but when you have 3 discharge years out of 5, back to back to back, slowly but surely, the grass dies. We have no manatee grass to speak of out there. We have very little widgeon grass. We've got a little bit of shoal grass coming back, but a lot of the things in that part of the estuary are now algae. They're actually a macroalgae. It looks like grass on the bottom, but it's not a true grass.
It's not. And Jackie Thurl-Lippisch, who sits on the South Florida Water Management District Board, has documented this from the air. Her husband, bless his heart, takes aerial photos.
We have satellite images. But back to Losum quickly, where we're at now. So the Caloosahatchee folks on the west side and organization I'm very close to and friends with, Captains of Clean Water, they're leading the charge over there to get this thing optimized. They want a better shake out of this. And right now, the Corps, and I was out with the Corps 3 weeks ago at the C-44 reservoir. They did an overview of it. Said they're going back to try to get it more balanced for the West Coast, the East Coast. As stands with CC, we would have about a 65% decrease in discharges year round. That's pretty significant. That's significant. It isn't zero. It isn't stop the discharges, but it's pretty significant. Right now, we're on pins and needles because we're not sure what the Corps is going to come up with on October 15th.
Okay.
We're not sure what the final, and they've already said Plan CC is gone. We're not even calling it that. Now we're going to call it the final plan. So they're going to come out with something that's a little bit more balanced, fair for the Caloosahatchee. But our fear is that we're going to give up a lot of our benefit to add benefit for them on the other side. And it's this tug of war, which we really don't want.
Is the 15th the final decision?
I think it's the 13th. I think it's the final decision. Then it's going to go to, and if you go on the Corps' website under Losum, you'll see the whole timetable. Once the plan is let to go to the public, there'll be public comment period again for a few months. Then it'll go to an environmental impact statement.
Okay.
Then it'll go to decision of record. Then it'll go to Congress for the final.
Okay.
You got it.
For the final
we don't know
approval.
what it's going to be at this point. And my fear is we're going to end up with like a 50%, 45% decrease in discharges over the next 10 years. And frankly, that falls a little short.
Right.
I think. And I made my thoughts very clear to Senator Marco Rubio. I was fortunate to be invited to a closed door meeting with the senator and Everglades Foundation, Audubon, and a few other
wonderful
NGOs, just the 5 of us, 6 of us with Senator Marco Rubio's staff, and the Army Corps engineers, 10 of them and 10 of them from the district. In this out at the reservoir, they have a construction trailer.
Right.
Came in, we had a 2-hour head session, talk about it.
That is wonderful.
And Marco Rubio, Senator Rubio was there to see the C-44 project, which by the way is finished.
Okay.
And we'll talk about that later.
Yes, let's do that as well.
But my point to him and the colonel, I said, Losum has been a tiresome, long process. And I tip my hat to the Corps for this long endeavor. But let's face it, the reason they have to go back and optimize this thing, they're not going to get, the problem is we have not enough places to put the water.
Right.
No matter how you manage it, we still have a problem with putting the water somewhere. Where are we going to put the water, the excess water? And we're getting wetter all the time, it seems. Hurricanes are stronger. Our daily thunderstorms, a lot of folks are saying, you know what? It hasn't rained like this before.
That's right.
It's starting to look like climate change, maybe.
And when it rains
rains,
it's a system. It fills the whole system up. That's the problem. It's not like you can just put the water down south of the lake. Well, it's raining there too, and it fills it up.
And my point to the senator was, we have to face the fact that we need to possibly take control of more land and places to put the water to make Losum worthwhile. There's STAs south of the lake, 5 of them, built by taxpayers' money. But
STA, storm treatment areas.
Yes, but we're getting a tiny percentage of that capacity for direct lake water. Most of those storm water treatment areas are put in to filter and hold and clean agricultural runoff before it gets to the Everglades, because there's a federal law, the consent decree, that says you can't put water in the Everglades if it's over 10 parts phosphorus. And so far they're successful, but a lot of us think we should have some right to that storage too, for the lake water, because that's the lake water that comes here.
That's right.
And comes to Caloosahatchee, and that's also water that's going to go south to the Everglades. And little projects are starting to happen. They took the old Tamiami Trail roadbed out about a month ago. They had ribbon cutting. All that old pavement is gone. The old trail, that's what ran from L67 Canal.
And let the water flow south.
Yes. And now they got the bridges. 2 bridges. Second one's about done. So you're going to have more water to bridge.
Wonderful.
That pavement is gone, that old pavement,
Yes.
so it can flow south. So again, stakeholders on both coasts, we don't want to thrust the water on each other. We want it to go south to the Everglades, Florida Bay. And then we won't have to worry about who's getting a rotten deal out of
Right.
Lowe's, you know?
Right.
So right now it's in its formulation is they're going to do a workshop today actually to discuss harmful toxic algal blooms and how it should factor into LOSM. And
So folks, this is important to put your input in. As you just said,
yeah,
everyday people can join this meeting over the internet and give your input. It's so
and
important.
if you can't, you can bet we're representing you. I mean,
And thank you for that,
you
because
know,
we do
Rivers
need voices down
Coalition,
there.
my organization, Friends of the Everglades, which by the way, folks, is here locally in Stewart.
Yes.
EU Samples.
Yes.
We're on every call. We're
Out there watching
until we hear
everything.
differently. We'd like to hear more from the public. Yeah.
Absolutely. What's important? It's one thing when the issue is not in your face. Basically, we don't have the discharges right now. We don't have the algal blooms right now.
yeah,
So
you
people
don't.
kind of forget about it. Or if you're new to the area, you don't realize how damaging this was.
No, I know it.
So
So
right now, even though it's good right now, the voices are so important, because this LOSM, as you said, once it's passed, it's going to be the regulation
stone
standard
for 10
set in
years.
stone of how we are going to be getting discharges or not,
Exactly.
or what have you. So, and there's so many issues. You know, I had Rob Lord here last week, and he talked about he was one of the first CEOs to come out against
yes, he was.
yeah, and put up health advisories and let them know that this is very dangerous to our health, that these discharges are affecting people. And you know that as well. There was testing for cyanobacteria.
Yeah, I was one of them.
You were one of them. Everybody, 100% of the
75
people
positive tests out of 75. Yeah.
tested for
And by
this
the way,
stuff.
the CDC right now has volunteers. They recruited 28 more volunteers this year from the West Coast, and they even got a couple folks around the lake to say, "Yeah, I'll be part of the test."
It's so important. And there's neurological diseases that happen from some of the, the toxin.
What you don't know can hurt you.
Right. So this is exciting news that it's every arrow in the quiver that's helping. There is no one silver bullet that's going to fix it all. So,
Right. Exactly.
readjusting these regulations, having the restoration of the SEMI, all these things are so incredibly important. You had talked about as well that I think you wanted to talk about the STAs. You wanted to hit on them. I know you talked about
A little
them.
bit, yeah,
Mhm.
sure.
Or the C44, that's what it
Yeah,
was.
C44
Yes.
reservoir. And
Tell us a little bit about that. 'Cause
That
is completed.
project is part of the IRL South program. That would include the C44, and anybody that has been out to the C44 canal. If you're driving out toward Indiantown and eventually around the lake, you look to your north from the roadbed, you'll see this, all the concrete. You'll see some pavement over there in cranes. That is the reservoir. It's near Timer Powers Park.
Oh, okay.
And we drove out there last week and looked at it. And the public can drive out there, go down Citrus and take a right where the sign says STA.
Yeah.
And you can go drive to the top of this thing right now and look at it. It's this giant bowl in the earth. And it's going to divert probably, I believe it's 9 to 13 billion gallons of water.
Wow.
Now, it's a good project. It is really a cleansing project. It's more of an STA. The reservoir will hold that amount of water. It's not going to divert a ton of water from the discharges. And we have huge discharges to the S80 from the lake. We're talking about sometimes 3 to 4 billion gallons a day, if you recall.
Yeah, I do recall.
Well, this project's going to hold about a week's worth.
Okay.
But it's going to clean it. When it does, it's going to take the water in. And check our Facebook page, Indian River Keeper. We're going to have some photos on there shortly about the project.
Okay, Captain Connor, we're going to take a short break, and we're going to come right back at the next half hour and we'll continue this discussion. We are back, and I have the Indian River Keeper here in the studio with me. I appreciate this mug that he gave me a while back. Appreciate it a lot. As you can tell, Captain Connor is very well versed in our water issues here in the area. If you have any questions or comments, please share them now. You can call the studio 220-WSTU. And I'm also watching Facebook Live comments as well. So either way, Captain Connor, this is a huge undertaking that you have taken as becoming Indian River Keeper. You're certainly very knowledgeable, and it's a full-time job for you, just trying to keep up with all the water regulations and issues. Another thing that you do as an Indian River Keeper is you check the water quality around the area, not just right here in St. Lucie, but you're up and down the Indian River Lagoon, and you ask for people to help you out with that. So if they see something...
I stress it very strongly to people. It's not just like, my jurisdiction is all the way from Stewart to New Smyrna, 160 miles of waterway. And admittedly, I get myopic about Lake Okeechobee, and I'm where the hot spots are. That's where I am. I was up in the Northern Lagoon back a lot more 6 months ago when they had that.
Is that the Banana River Lagoon area, the fish kill?
The algal bloom's chronic up there. Mm-hmm. The thing now with the IRL North IRL, there's no circulation, very little. Titusville to about Cocoa Beach, there's no real circulation to get down to Sebastian Inlet. That area up there is booming. And I will tell you, their infrastructure up there, they have sewage problems. They have sewage spills up there quite a bit. Titusville's got a black eye. Sewage spills. And there are people up there working hard on that, the Marine Resources Council, other local groups. Sometimes I think to myself, they need a northern water keeper up there in a way because it's such a big piece of water. But what's happened up there is the algal blooms or phytoplankton blooms, they're nanoplankton blooms, different kind of blooms. So not so much, they're cyanobacterias, but they're not what you see on Lake Okeechobee or in our estuary when we get dumped on. What's happened there is those blooms are so dense, they shade out the sunlight. And seagrasses are gone. Not just that, they also have the problems of direct nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment coming from a lot of canals. So that area has lost a lot of seagrass due to their own local inputs. When you get about to Sebastian or south of Cocoa Beach or so, the waters are clearer. You don't see the blooms like you do up in Titusville and northern, as far as down around Sebastian. You got a good inlet flush there. You got a good inlet flush at Fort Pierce. You have our inlet, which is a great flush of water.
Right.
Why in the world has the seagrass declined south of Melbourne like it has when we have plenty of sunlight? What is going on? We're a lot of very smart scientists, smarter than me, are looking at this and saying, what is going on with herbicides, which we are using habitually all over the land to kill weeds on fence lines, kill weeds along canal banks.
That's right.
We're not so convinced that those herbicides don't live long enough once they get into the marine environment to cause damage to seagrass because they're plants. They're designed to kill plants. And, Casey, you look at the horrible mass mortality of manatees that's happened this year. They did necropsies on those animals to discover that they not only starved, they believe they were eating Clerpa algae, which are a leafy plant in the bottom, which basically replace seagrass. They're eating macroalgae, grassolarias, things that weren't very nutritious. They think they actually could have been killed. Those animals could have been killed by some toxins and those other things. They're not sure yet.
Because there's legacy muck. I mean, these nutrients go into the water. They settle into the muck.
In the case of the manatees, they did necropsies, and they found that 50% of the ones they did necropsies on had in their blood plasma glyphosate.
Oh, wow.
It's Roundup.
Yes, it is Roundup.
It's a brand name for glyphosate.
That's right.
They found it in the manatees' bodies. And it was publicized. I don't know where it's going from there, but we talked to a couple scientists at Harvard Branch and Dr. Grant Gilmore. I believe you know.
I do.
And he is
he's spectacular.
The authority on this lagoon fisheries.
Yes.
And he's convinced that glyphosate has a hand in this. And, I go around St. Lucie. I moved to St. Lucie County just a while back. I lived in Mark County for 20 years. I drive around St. Lucie neighborhoods. I'm looking around at all the canals and all the swales and public waterway. They're all sprayed to death.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that?
Yes. No
all
weeds.
Brown everywhere. And it's, there's some invasives they want to kill. I understand, but it seems like they're just doing wholesale spraying all over the place.
Right.
And all those waterways, a lot of them do end up in the IRL. Some of the water goes through groundwater, stormwater runoff. It all gets into the IRL. And I've documented quite a bit in the last 7 or 8 months. The change of what's on the bottom in the IRL from Stewart North and from
Right.
Jensen North mostly. The whole shorelines are, if you look out, if you're driving Indian River Drive on a sunny day,
Yeah.
to that high vantage
Yes.
point, you look out, you think, oh, dark spot there, dark. That's great. It's all grass. Not most of it's not seagrass. It's Lingbia, and Lingbia is a cyanobacteria, and there's hundreds and hundreds of cyanobacteria in the world, not
Okay.
just the one that produces microcystin, the blue-green algae,
Okay.
because blue-green algae is not really an algae, by the way. It is a cyanobacteria.
Okay. All right.
These cyanobacteria are not as toxic, but they're not good habitat, and they're a sign of nutrients in the water, a sign of too much nitrogen, too much phosphorus. What's coming out of the storm drains? A lot of storm drains along the IRL, that long highway.
Right.
If you look, they're just pipes. There's no
Just dump
baffle
right into
boxes.
it. No.
To Martin County and St. Lucie has some too. To their credit, they've put in a lot of baffle boxes. If you Google baffle box, you'll see it's a compartment. It's like a small room that has a filtration system for water, takes out some phosphorus, takes out all solids,
Okay.
a lot of solids. And that they were installed. I think City of Stewart has 46 outfalls. Every one of them has a baffle box system. And that's taxpayer
huge.
money put to good use.
It is.
But if you go along the IRL, up and down, you'll see there's so many places where it's just a straight shot to the lagoon from street runoff. And street runoff, stormwater runoff, everybody, don't be confused. It doesn't mean storms. It's only stormwater. It's that first inch or two, though, on heavy rainfalls.
Right.
That is the first flush.
Okay.
That takes in all your yard fertilizer residue. That's excess.
Right.
Takes in anything you put in the ground, on the ground, and it puts it straight into the water. And you look at that stuff, and it comes up on the shorelines. And people on the Indian River Drive I've had many calls. People say, "You come out and look at this stuff. It's horrible. It smells so bad, and it's rotting on the shoreline on the downwind side of the lagoon." And it can be troublesome for pets. I understand that little reading it can harm your dogs.
Right.
But
Right.
don't have your kids swim in it either, because it's
Right.
really noxious stuff. And it's, if you go up to Fort Pierce downtown and come south to about Jensen Causeway, if you just look at that shoreline and that
I
black
see that.
stuff rotting, that's not natural. That is
And
that's
this
a
is
bloom.
decades of it building up as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I think we're seeing a tipping point here in the last couple of years with the grass.
Yeah, when you-
Seagrass is
yeah,
dying. I
if-
mean, it's
If you have any time here at all, if you've been here very long at all, those docks, there's all the docks out there.
yes.
There used to be grass
Yes.
under those docks.
Yes.
Now the bare bottom extends well past the tees of these docks. And I swear I'm seeing changes over the next 2 months. It's like male pattern baldness. It's starting to go away, and you're trying to, what are you going to do about
It's
this?
like, yep. and
But it's like upon the bank out there. It's just so less. And fishing, by the way, has suffered.
I was going to ask you about that. I mean,
Yeah.
you're captain. So
There's a lot of anglers around here finally saying, you know what, the trout are gone. Not too
Jeez.
long ago, CCA Florida, that's Coast Conservation Association Florida, they have their yearly chapter challenge. They have
Okay.
chapters all over the state. They all go to Rufus Wakeman's place, River Palms. That's where the tournament is, the party and all. They have 66 angler teams this year. One of the anglers came to me and talked to me and went public about it. Said, we used to catch a lot of nice snook and sea trout
Mhm.
inshore. The snook are not as well distributed as they used to be. They're all around the docks and the bridges, the inlets when they're supposed to be there spawning. But the trout fishing is horrific. And 7 trout were caught by 140 really good fishermen.
7 trout.
And it got so bad the last few years that about 80% of those guys who go to that tournament, they don't do the inshore anymore.
They don't even
go to the offshore division.
Tell us, how many trout would have you caught a decade ago?
Oh, well, I said when I was guiding a lot more, I took a lot of families out for that kind of fishing, kids. If I couldn't go out at the right time of year, and I'm talking about like March through, early summer, if I couldn't go out and catch you 50 sea trout, catch and release on artificial lures, something was wrong.
Wow.
Now, I will go out. I went out in March and April and May myself, fishing by myself in my boat, just fishing the way I know how to fish.
Right.
For them.
That's
And
what you do.
Catch 1, 3,
Unbelievable.
go along my trolling motor run and just go along the grass trying to spook them out, look for them. They're not there. And the pinfish aren't there, the little bait fish. The whole food web.
The whole
right now.
ecology is.
I think, when the FWC put
Messed
out
up.
their assessment and bag limits, a lot of anglers around town here were saying, let's close it. Let's close trout harvest for 5 years. Let's close it until we get the water quality and the grass habitat back.
Right.
FWC is slow to make that kind of a dramatic move. They had to on the West Coast.
Okay.
They're closed snook and redfish and trout 3-4 years now because of the red tide kills.
Jeez. And that still is happening.
We're losing fish too. We don't have a red tide. Dry out a red tide. It's kind of like death by 1,000 cuts here. It's quietly but surely happening.
Right.
In the IRL. And
Right.
the water's so clear right now. But what the clear water shows me is what's not there.
Right.
You
I was
know?
going to say, what is the solution now with these seagrasses? Because at least our water's getting cleaner without discharges. But again, that muck is on the bottom. It's full of, if it's glyphosate.
Glyphosate, yeah.
Here we go.
Roundup. Just say Roundup.
Yeah. Roundup.
And there's
if
other,
it's
there's
full
other
of it,
brands too.
yeah,
There's other
when is
brands.
that going to be able to grow back and
I know.
sustain fish hatcheries?
That's something I really, it could be my thrust here going forward a lot. And folks I know, some scientists, we got to go public. We got to get the research done and do the sediment tests and find out how much herbicide is there and really how long it's lasting. I have seen journals, I've seen write-ups where they say that actually lasts longer in the saltwater than freshwater.
Really?
Now, we're not sure. Now, think about something
We're
else.
brackish here, so.
The state of Florida sprays the whole chain of lakes above Lake Okeechobee. They spray those lakes
all the
for
runoff.
invasive hydrilla and all kind of, hyacinths, all the different invasive plants because they choke the lakes out. All of that chemical residue, all that stuff goes down the line, ends up in the big lake.
Ends up in Waco.
And it's just crazy. You see all the boats and airboats. And right now the fight out there is to, we need to get back to mechanical harvesting to open up those lanes for boats. Just open up as much as you need to get around.
Yes.
Because really hydrilla and things like that, invasive plants, they're now really habitat. They're not ever going to go away. They've become naturalized in Florida.
Okay.
So you think about where we are, St. Lucie River. We get that water. We get whatever is put in that water. That stuff, the herbicides are phosphorus based. So you're actually putting more phosphorus in the water by trying to kill the plants.
Right.
And when the plants die, that adds more phosphorus to the system. And pretty soon no wonder we have algal blooms.
We do.
In the C-44 canal and in our estuary. I was looking closely this week at our South Fork because I thought with the C-44 water coming in from the S-80, that's the St. Lucie Lock and Dam, everybody out there, where you go to a little campground. I thought maybe we'd see some cyanobacteria blooms because the water is 88 degrees and it's hot. I haven't seen any yet.
Thank
That
goodness.
just tells you we don't get the blooms really until we get the lake.
The discharges, because there's so
Really,
much
we don't.
nutrient in it that it's feeding
And
them.
by the way, this cyanobacteria bloom problem is countrywide, worldwide.
It is.
There are so many lakes in the world that are closed to recreation and drinking water. Some cities use it for drinking water. Look what happened to West Palm Beach, the drinking water supply.
Right.
Yeah, it came straight down the C-51 canal from the lake. And
It is.
They got ahead of that, thank God. But right now, we're sitting on this. We're sitting on hoping for, no hurricanes. And we do this year after
That's
year.
right.
We're a little tired of hoping for dry weather.
Right.
We want this
I
loathsome.
know.
We want this plan to work.
We need something more than hope.
We need more than hope. Do our drought dance. I call it
Right.
Drought dance.
Right.
Year after year.
We're speaking with Captain Mike Connor. If you have any questions, comments, call into the studio 220-9788-220-WSTU. Jackie Paconis, appreciate you tuning in. Jackie, I know this water issue is near and dear to you, and you have a personal experience with your granddoggy that I remember was poisoned from the water a couple of years ago. And Jackie says, with more and more building and the loss of land due to the paving over the ground, will that also affect quality of our waterways?
Well, sure, because that increases runoff. Increases runoff 100%. I mean, water runs off of hard surfaces, impervious. There's a development program called LID. It's low impact development. It's being explored right now, especially in the Northern Lagoon for cities like Cocoa, Melbourne. They've got to come up with the development plans that include water retention from a building, a big parking lot. There's also something called pervious concrete.
Mm-hmm.
Shepherd Park.
Okay.
Have you seen the project over there?
Yes. It's right across the street.
Orca came in there and they did that natural vegetation and those little baffles for water. They also, if you look at the concrete, it looks different. It's pervious. It allows
darn.
water from rain to go straight into the underlayer of
Instead of running off.
ramp and the parking lot. It stays in the ground. It doesn't just run down the ramp
Interesting.
into the river.
Right.
Okay. So it's small, but if we have a lot of that, if we start using that 100% on roadways,
It's another
it's a
arrow in the
It's
quiver.
a big dollar bill. I'm sure it's a big
Right.
price tag.
But if you have to re-concrete something, now's the time to look. Or then is the time to
But
look at it.
development, you get right back to it. And I hear from folks all the time saying, you got your LOSIM, you got all these different things, all these preventative measures and projects, all for naught, because we're getting 1,300 people a day now. I think it's gone up over 1,200 now a day. And as long as people keep
Moving
coming,
here. Mhm.
we're just looking at the.
Just more buildings.
I
more-
don't subscribe to that. I think we can do the right things, get the projects right, get the legislature to finally realize that This is about human health, the economy, tourism, and that's what drives the industry in Florida is tourism.
It certainly
It
is.
is number one, and a lot of it has to do with water. And a lot of it has to do with not just sport fishing, just boating. Folks they're going to come here, and the other side of the coin, people say they don't care about the water. A lot of people just want it warm. If it's warm, they'll deal with the bad water, and that might be true for some people, but not most of us.
No, it's not.
You don't want to come to Florida just so you can be warm in the winter and you have these waters you can't touch.
Well, and I'll bring this back up.
Come
Is
on.
the testing you had for the cyanobacteria, it was people that weren't even in the water. You're still testing for cyanobacteria. It's in the air. It gets airborne.
No.
So,
And the jury's out. The jury's
Staying away
out
from the
about
water.
long term. It's still out about long term
truly
exposure.
is.
And a lot of us have had decades of exposure to this kind of stuff.
well, this area
You
is
know?
a hot spot in the country
Yep.
for liver disease that's not related to alcoholism.
Yeah, the whole cluster extends from Okeechobee County all the way around the lake, St. Lucie, Martin, and I think Hendry is part of it. It's a big
A
red
big-
block on the. You look at the maps for that around the country, and your eyes go right to that area around
It's like
Okeechobee.
there we are. We're
and
right in the middle of it.
We're it.
So
Why?
it's a
Why is that? What are we?
that is
exposed
right.
to?
There's got to be a connection here with our waterways. I mean, they're studying that and all
Yeah.
this, but it's a frightening thing to think about. So to come here and say if I stay out of the water, it's not going to affect me. That's not the case. It's
No, it's
around
not.
us. It's
It's
all
not.
around us. Brent Wallenberg, thanks for tuning in. He has mentioned this before. He says, put calcium carbonate back on the west shore of the lagoon. He's been a strong supporter of putting calcium carbonate back in the water. He believes that will take care of the ecology of it.
Calcium carbonate. Yep.
So,
I've heard that. I saw those comments on Facebook.
yeah.
I would have
so
to have someone send me the data
on
and
it.
show me where that's worked and show me why that works, because I've flown that kite around a few people and they've all looked at me like, what are you talking about?
Okay.
I'll be honest with you.
Yes.
I don't know. I
Right.
don't know. I don't know how you can
You need data.
change the chemistry of the water that way and still not correct the water
Right.
quality coming in,
Right.
you know?
Right. So Brent, if you have some data to help support,
Well, you can find,
your
just
thoughts.
email keeper@theindianriverkeeper.org. I'm happy to look at it.
you'll be very interested to look at it.
Sure.
Anything. Again, we're talking about there's many arrows in the quiver to use to help the system. So whatever helps is a very good thing. And Brent also said acidification is the root cause of everything from the beach erosion to organic material being preserved in the muck. So we definitely have a lot of issues that are going around here. But, this LOSUM, Mike, if you could choose the way it's going to be written, what's ideal for us?
Oh, well, again, what's ideal for us is no discharges whatsoever. LOSUM, no matter how the final plan comes out, there's still the problem of putting, 10 pounds in a 5-pound bag. I mean, of whatever.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
We still don't have the places to put the water. And the reason we have to do that is because our development's encroached on the Everglades. It's a remnant Everglades. Everglades is half the footprint it used to be. Lake Okeechobee has been dammed. It's a dam around it. It's a
Right.
dike, but it's a dam.
Right.
There's other dams all over South Florida, Alligator Alley, which has got some flow through.
Opened up
Canyon
now.
Trail's being corrected. We have to get the water south, but we need to put the water used to be south of the lake, naturally flowed from the lake. The lake before development, before agriculture, before all this happened, overflowed its banks. The lake footprint was almost twice the size as it is now in the wet season, like the Kissimmee River was.
Okay.
And the lake overflowed naturally. And they put an earthen dam there to do the farming.
Mhm.
That's why so many people drowned that terrible hurricane.
Yes.
Is that berm wouldn't hold the Lake Okeechobee back. And Okeechobee wanted to go south. And so instead of abandoning the idea
Yes.
of having that industry there because of the lake being a danger, man is hey, we're going to beat nature. We can do it. We want to reclaim this place. And by God, we're going to do it. And they did by putting a hardened dike around the lake. And what that did was it cut off the flow
Right.
of water south. So we have 500,000 to 700,000 acres that used to be a wetland, river grass. We wouldn't be talking about discharges to the rivers right now on the coast if we still have that.
Right.
That's wishful thinking.
Yeah, it's not going to
We
happen
need
now.
a
There's
portion,
development.
and over the years, we've almost had this many thousand acres. We almost had 190,000 acres with that deal that Charlie Crist
Yes.
almost signed with U.S. Sugar, and it died because the economy crashed, and it was no longer in the interest of the growers to sell that
Right.
land. And
Right.
they were at the table practically to get
Yeah.
that done.
Yes.
If we had gotten that 190,000, we were going to build a bigger flowway, and we wouldn't be worrying about LOSUM. We wouldn't be
like we
worrying
are
about
now.
how do we get around it?
Mike,
So we're jumping through hoops trying to get it right, despite the fact we have very little place to put it
and
in the wettest years.
There's something I don't know about this. I'm going to ask you, but there are Indian tribes that are south of the lake.
Yes.
What are the impacts to them? What are their feelings of how Lonesome should look for them?
Originally, the impacts, well, Lonesome, even way before now, they were very concerned about dirty water
Right.
coming from the lake, from the farming operations into their hunting grounds and their place where they live. They were worried about the giant cattail explosions that are happening down there because of phosphorus. They also worry about water level, because when so much water comes south, if we don't, it's tough because they live in a place that's wet, very wet in the summer, where they live out in the glades west of Miami.
Okay.
There were things going on north where the water would be shunted their way and it would be too high. And, when the tree islands are drowning and when the deer are drowning, everything else happens, that would infuriate anybody, especially the tribe.
Absolutely.
And the tribe had a very good lawyer at one time named Dexter Layton that fought for them against the federal government when it came to the pollution controls.
Okay.
And that's how we came upon this 10 parts phosphorus consent decree, where the water could no longer come off the northern farmlands that dirty. And the tribe had a lot to do with that.
Okay.
They're powerful, and they had a powerful lawyer that did a great job at that. But now we're dealing with Lonesome. They're a stakeholder as well. And they're worried about, well, if we want to decrease all these discharges, right, to the estuaries, their fear is we're going to be higher. We're going to have higher water here.
That's right.
Much higher. We want to flow the water south, and we want to get it down there. They put a curtain wall up, 8.5 square mile area.
No.
West, it's called Las Palmas. Years ago, 30, 40 years ago, somehow a developer got the rights to develop land west of the wall of the Everglades.
Wow, okay.
Down by north of Homestead.
Okay.
They build all these ranch homes out there, and they flood all the time because they're in the Everglades.
Right.
We we know that we need that big 10-mile square area to help that east flow go down to Taylor Slough to go to Florida Bay. So what the district had done, they had an option of either buying those homes out, and some of the people live there, we're going to sell out and let this demolish the homes and return to part of the Everglades, or build a curtain wall, which would protect them. So now they're building a curtain wall.
Oh my goodness.
And it'll be done in a year.
Really?
So that's another little project that's going to help get the water flow south.
Okay.
But then the tribe worries about that water coming out close to their reservation out there. And they're worried about
there's a reaction to every action. And no matter what you do, something else is going to be impacted.
That's what the Corps is charged with right now. Doing something that will not harm anybody irreparably at this point.
It's a tough task to undertake.
Yeah,
it truly is.
I tell you, I didn't bring my sheets with me, but if you go to the Corps site, there's a workshop schedule, and they're going to be dealing with the public is in this all the way, and we're included in all this planning. Today, they're talking about algal blooms, and what Lonesome should do to decrease the chance of people being exposed to algal blooms. Well, it's pretty simple. Don't discharge. The next workshop will be about Lake O recovery. They're worried about Lake O. They keep the lake too high. CC also keeps the lake higher all year, and that's not a good thing either, because the marsh will be harmed. The estuary, that part of the lake is better when it's lower. It's better for the fish. So what do we do with that water? Again, we need to find places to put the water to make Lonesome work.
Speaking of algal blooms, there was a huge issue with that on the east side of the lake earlier this year. How's the lake look today?
Yeah, right now, if you go, you can look at the lake through satellite. So ionlakeo.com. It's ionlakeo.com.
EYE.
Todd, Jackie Thurlip's son, designed this website. And you can look at the bloom. You can look at the bloom potential. And if you want to know what's going on with algal blooms out there, you can go to the DEP algal bloom hotline or the dashboard. And you can go on there, and DEP is charged with once a week telling the public where they sampled, what they found, percentage of microcystin, which is the toxin that those blooms have. And I'm out there every couple of weeks. When the wind blows out of the west, I go out there.
Do you have links on your website for people to go to all these places?
I do have a resource link on there, yes.
So that's a great place. So if you just go to IndianRiverKeeper.com, you can find all these websites.
And only on Facebook, I'll do 3-4 posts a day. And a lot of times I'll post those things and those links on Facebook as well.
And Adam Locke, I appreciate you tuning in, and you bring up a very good point. He said, are you looking to make a difference? Support the Indian River Keeper by becoming a member.
Appreciate that.
So, and they can do that by going to your website. All the information is there.
Adam's, he's a resident of the Indian River Drive. He knows what I'm talking about the river along that side. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. He certainly does, as well as, there's a few other folks out there that
And by
are
the way,
very
yeah,
involved
and
with
by
the
the way, if you
water.
go to the Jensen Causeway, maybe you notice those big rocks they put there, that erosion block that was really horrible. I just think it's ridiculous in a lot of ways. But Adam was the one that got the county to take away 15 to 20 feet, I believe, of it to allow people to walk on the outside of the rocks and do their kite. He's a kite guy.
Yes.
So he went to the
impacted.
commission to the county and got that done. So, hey, Adam, good job.
And Adam, you're always been involved with the community. I've known Adam for quite a few years, so appreciate that. And that's where your voice does matter. So
Definitely
can make a
does.
difference, can it?
Any more
So,
Adam Locks?
yes, absolutely. I agree 100%. So LOSOM public comment. Again, you can connect to a lot of these links right at your website.
Yep.
Becoming a member, how much does that cost? And they can also donate more, right? You're a
Sure. Our
501c3.
membership's at $25 a year, and we have other levels of memberships from there. And we also have business partner program. And last year I had a good year, first year, getting about 12 businesses on board, support us. And we fly their flag, they fly our flag. So it's a good cross promotion thing.
It certainly
and
is.
I'd like to just emphasize the point your business can be directly impacted by this problem. I don't care. You don't have to be a boat dealer. You don't have to be a waterfront bar owner. You don't have to be a fishing guide or tackle shop. Your business, real estate, for instance.
Real estate. Well, we're all impacted one way or another. This is one of our, everybody says it, the river is the lifeblood of our community. So no matter what you're involved in, it impacts you.
And
so
if you want to talk to me as a business owner, feel free to email me, keeper@theindianriverkeeper.org, or my cell phone is 772-521-1882.
Appreciate you putting that out there. Appreciate you putting that out there.
I appreciate it too.
Again, we're with Captain Mike Connor. He is our Indian River keeper here. You've took this over, is it 3 or 4 years now? I mean, the time flies.
15 months. 15 months ago.
So last time I thought I was way short.
Yeah, the previous water keepers were Kevin Stinnett, George Jones, and Marty Baum.
Yes.
And I was a board member. With
15 months. It seems like it's been longer for some reason, but you know what you have done? I think it's because you've done so much in such a short a period of time. I mean, you've really brought a new voice to the Indian River keeper position.
People. We made a lot of progress in the last 2 years, and really our community hasn't been out there with giant protests.
No discharges, so people haven't.
A lot of folks got tired and they got attrition. You go away, you can't do it all the time. But we've done a lot without a lot of the other stuff that we used to do. We've done a lot because the right organizations are doing this with us. So we have some good organizations right here in town.
That's some power in numbers
that are getting it done because we're in the room.
Yes,
that's the main thing. We're in the room. We have a good relationship with the
You're at the table.
District and with our politicians.
Huge to be at the table. Well, thank you again, Captain Mike Connor, Indian River Keeper. Please go to his website and support this organization. As you can tell, he's very knowledgeable and he's out there working for all of us. Next week, I'm going to have Tony Stevens on with, he was one of the founding members of Foghat, and he's always a lot of fun. He's a great guy. So be sure to tune in, and that's going to be on Facebook Live Tuesday at 11 a.m. And the pre-recorded show will be right here Wednesdays at 11 a.m. Take care. Thanks again, Captain Connor.
I appreciate it. Thank you.